In this video I want to share my experience of the Hero Dolomites race. Now, if you don't want to hear about my preparations before the race and only hear about the race report, you should jump to this time right here, and then I will start talking about the race during the morning. Okay, so this was like late November, maybe even December last year, when a colleague of mine, Marcus, who was from Valgarena, said that hey, they are doing some kind of mountain bike race where my parents live. And I was like, hey man, your parents, they live in the Alps. That's high altitude mountains. Mountain biking, high altitude mountains, that would probably mean going up those mountains, right? And he told me like, oh, don't you worry, Björn. It's only 86 kilometers long and 4,500 height meters. 4,500 height meters. At first I just said, no, that's crazy. Nobody can do that. I'm not gonna do that. But then I was thinking about it for a few days, and I was doing the classical ski race Vasaloppet in March. So I'm gonna be in pretty good shape, and then it's 3 months later, 4 months in June. Yeah, it could actually work out if I start using my, getting my bicycling workouts going. So after a few days I changed my mind and said, I'm gonna do it. Also I realized that this would be an extreme effort biking up these mountains on high altitudes. So I need to make some changes and race preparations. So I lost some weight. I used to be like 92 kilos, now I'm 81 kilos, so I lost like 11 kilos of weight and I feel great. And that was a good reason for me to lose weight, the biking competition. And this spring I did 2 Swedish mountain bike races, which helped me improve my biking a lot. But all the time I was seriously worried about getting home from Valgarena and the Hero Dolomites race in one piece. And when the time came to travel down there, I had done, like I said, 2 races and hours of biking on my road bike and on my mountain bike. So I felt that I was really good prepared. Now, one big issue we have here in Sweden is that we don't really have those kind of high altitude mountains. So I didn't have any idea about how my body would react biking at high altitude and for long ascents. So that was the preparation part. Now let me take you through my experience of the Sellaronda Hero Dolomite race. But first we need to get the Hero shirt on and get the helmet on, and of course I'm gonna need my goggles. There we go. Okay, now I'm feeling ready to talk about the race. So on the evening before the race you actually get this Hero shirt in the goodie bag that they give you with your starting bib number and the ship and everything, so that's nice. When just a few weeks before we traveled down to Italy, we learned that there was a record this winter with the amount of snow they have gotten. So they were actually digging out the tracks before the snow. For weeks it had been raining and thunder and hard winds, and conditions were not so perfect for doing the race. But when we came to the race weekend, the weather turned around, and like from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the weather was awesome. It was warm, it was 0 winds, no rain, and the forest and the mountain dried up really nice. So in the morning, Marcus, which is from Ortisei in Valgarena, he used one of his local contacts and got the truck to pick us up. And then they drove us all the way to the start, and that was really nice service. It was early in the morning, like 6 o'clock, and the sun was slowly coming up, and it was only like 5 degrees in the shadows of the mountain. So if you're doing the race, you're gonna freeze in the morning. We had good weather and we froze. So shifting temperatures is an issue for sure. When we got down to the starting area, we could see the first guys in the competitive class takeoff. They started like 1 hour before us, 7:30 something. We started around 8:30. These guys were extremely fast, and some Colombian guy finished in like 4 hours 26 minutes. That's under 5 hours, and that is kind of insane compared to I'm gonna tell you about my time soon. So the track then, it goes around the big mountain massive called Sella, and it breaks down for us into, if you look at the track, we're going to have 4 big mountains we need to pass. And out from the start in Selva was a 700-meter climb up to Dantercipis, I think it's called. Everybody was going very slow and nice and control gear 1, just slowly ascending. If you are doing this race, make sure that you have the right gears on your bike. You should not have a ratio of above 0.6. If you want to calculate that, you simply take all the cogs you have in your front shifter and your back gears. I had 50 in the back, 30 in front, 30 through 50 is 0.6, and I could have even like 26 in front to come below 0.6 ratio to get you more power when it's very steep uphill, so you won't have to walk as much. So I made it over the first pass in Cambio in 1 hour 5 minutes, and then started the first downhill section. It was a lot of people going downhill. It was very crowded. It went very slow, so I started taking all the shortcuts out on the grass that I could take, and I passed a lot of people. I really like going downhill fast, so crowded downhills is something that drives me crazy because I can feel I'm like losing time there. Mountain number 2 was also pretty controlled climb, but at the very top was a section where you had to do push bike for maybe 20 minutes, not so bad, and everybody was pushing their bikes. It was too steep to bike. We got over the top, and there came a longer, more aggressive descent. Here people started being like scared, and they started walking with their bikes. I had a dropper post saddle, which I just lowered on my rental bike, and then I could go full speed to hell. I could go full speed downhill, passing all these people that were walking, and I passed a lot of people in this descent. When we started the climb of the mountain 3, we know that it was going to be a monster. It's the climb after Araba on the map, and here I caught up with Marcus. And this was very weird because Marcus is much faster bicyclist than me, and he grew up on the mountains. I figured he left me in the first descent, I'm never gonna see him again. So we were equally shocked to see each other down at the bottom of the valley before going up on the monster mountain. But when we started this ascent, I felt my body started slowly failing me. We've been out for maybe 4.5 hours, and this mountain is it's a monster. It's 1000 vertical meter all at once, the biggest ascent in the race. And when you come up to the forest, things get very steep uphill. I think you have like 20 degrees angle uphill, and everybody who was like talking to each other before were now completely quiet. We were pushing our bikes uphill for 1.5 hours before we came up over the tree line where there was no trees. And I broke my heels on my foot. I got scrubs on my heels. It hurt like a motherfucker. And the air got thinner and thinner coming up on the altitude, making your breathing heavier and heavier. And all of a sudden I just had to stop because I was just panting. I couldn't breathe. But while I was standing there, nobody passed me, so all the guys behind me were also equally exhausted. Then the forest cleared and we came up to the altitude of like 2000 meters. Very, very heavy breathing here. And this is where the hero race begins. When you're coming up on the mountain number 3, which is so heavy, this is where things are decided. Will you pass this section on time? If you do so, the chances are that you're gonna make the race. So if you're doing the race, take your time here, don't rush. Make sure you rest in the valley at the checkpoint where you have water in Araba before you go on mountain number 3, which is the monster mountain. I started having some problems with my stomach coming up on high altitude, and I could not really eat and drink and put energy into my body. And on the last bit I almost crawled to the top. My heart rate went down and my energy got lower and lower. And I finally, after many hours, made it over the top, just to see that there was another top, Pass Pordoy I think it's called. And that sucked so hard, because then you had to bike on high altitude getting to that next top of the mountain. But I finally made it over, but I was like completely exhausted. Then it was time for a long and brutal downhill. I've never seen so many people walk. I tried not to walk and just bike down everywhere, but it was, some parts were really dangerous, and I had to hold on hard to my bike to get all the way down. But I think I got some time back for all the stopping on the way up. Time for mountain number 4, which is the final mountain of the race. If you just make it over here, all the way down to the finish, and you're a hero. You made it. The dream come true. So it starts in the forest yet again, down in the valley, and I felt that I had to stop and rest and stop again and rest and breathe. I did everything except for moving forward. So as I got up to the tree line for the 4th time of the day, I got into what I call the Valley of Death, because it was slowly uphill, but you couldn't really see it, and there was no air, you were barely going forward, and I was like a zombie. I felt like shit and I felt like puking. My heart rate was down a lot, and I couldn't really move. And by this time I only had like 3 hours before the finish closed, so I was starting to think like, will I make it? It's a far way to go up, maybe 2 hours. Will I make it? I can't really move. So I realized I had to do everything in my power to make this race. So it was survival mode on. I realized that to make this race I need to get energy into my body, but my stomach wasn't working, so I realized I have to reset my stomach. In the Valley of Death I found myself a nice patch on the green grass. I took my water bottle, and very fast I drank like 2 deciliters, half the bottle, and I could feel my stomach like, fuck you man, on my knees, and here we go, just out with everything, mostly water because that's all there is. 15 minutes later on the bike I felt the nausea going down a bit, so I tried some gel just a little bit and some water to test my stomach. 20 minutes later, thank you bicycle god, I can feel my energy restoring, muscles working again, and I could just go for the final ascent over the final mountain, and it was go time again. So I climbed the final mountain and I rushed down towards the finish line in the valley. I finished after like 10 hours and 10 minutes with only 30 minutes to go before they close the finish. And if you finish after 10 hours 45 minutes, you are not a hero, even if you finish. And that would have sucked really hard to be there and to miss the finish and not get a medal. When I passed the final mountain on the cambio on the top, I realized I was gonna make it, and I just started crying my eyes out, going in the downhill, realizing that yes, I'm going to make it. So I just both hate and love the feeling of making impossible things happen. In the finish I got my medal and I was so happy. Fucking so! 10 hours! 10 hours! And then in the evening we had pizza. I think I had almost 1.5 full pizza and beer. It was the best beer and pizza I have ever tasted in my life. to sum things up about the Sellaronda Südtirol Hero Dolomites race, be prepared, don't be too heavy, go easy for the first 5 hours, unless you're Colombian, because you would have finished in less than 5 hours. Enjoy the run, the nature is just amazing down there, it's so cool to bike there. Yeah. That's all I have to say about my experience with the Sellaronda race. If you do it, drop a comment down below. If you feel inspired that you want to do something like this, drop a comment down below. If you have any other race that could be something for me and the guys to try out, let us know down in the comments. Alright, hope that you one day can be a hero. See you in the next one.